Hi, everyone. I am not going to make it into class today, so I just wanted to go over some notes. We are now looking at packet number 12, which is available in the classroom. And we've been talking about equations and looking at how to graph an equation. And now this time we're going to be talking about how to write the equation. Remember, every time we talk about linear equations or equations that'll give us a line, we've been talking about it in slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is that y equals mx plus b. And the important part to know about that y equals mx plus b is it's made up of three parts. The first part is that it has an x and a y, which acts as a coordinate pair. The next is the m is our slope. Okay, so you need to remember that the variable m stands for slope, and then the b stands for the y-intercept. Remember, the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be writing equations of a line, and what we're going to be doing, or how we're going to be doing that, is we're going to have two different methods. The first method is going to be that they're going to give us directly our m and our b, and we're going to substitute that in. And then the other way is we're going to be doing it from a graph. So it's important to know that when we have an equation like y equals negative 2x plus 5, it can be turned into a graph because we know that the 5 is where it crosses the y-axis. That's our b. And that negative 2 really means that from that point, we can go down 2 over 1, and we'll end up back on the line every time. You also need to remember that anytime we see an equation that has a y and an x, it'll be drawn out as a diagonal line because x and y are both present in the equation. So we can think of that backwards then, that if I see a diagonal line, that means that I'm going to have a y and an x in my equation. And that diagonal line is always going to be our positive slopes or negative slopes. We know that when we see just a y, like y equals 5, that it's going to be a horizontal line because there's a zero slope. So again, we can think of that backwards, that if I know that I see a horizontal line, it only goes through the y-axis, so my equation is only going to have a y in it. And lastly, if we have an x equals a number, that translates into a vertical line because it's an undefined slope. It only goes through the x-axis. So we can go backwards and say, if I see a vertical line, then I know my equation is only going to have x. So since the slope m and the y-intercept b are constant in each line, those are the only pieces we need when we go to write the equation of a line. So the first method of writing an equation today that we're going to be doing is when they give us directly the slope and the y-intercept, or the m and the b. Once we find the m and the b, then we're going to put them in. So looking at example 1, it says to write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form. Remember that slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be finding the m and the b so we can replace it. So if I continue to read the question, it says if the line's slope is negative 4, what variable do we use for slope? M is going to be our slope, so m is going to equal negative 4 in this case. And the y-intercept is 6. We use b to represent our y-intercept. So since we know that m is equal to negative 4 and b is equal to 6, we can write our equation by just substituting pieces in. So think of this as thinking of the equation as being y blank x blank, and we're filling in these two blanks. So in place of the m, I have negative 4, and in place of the b, I have 6. This is a positive 6, so we're going to say plus 6. Let's look at example 2. Example 2 says, write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form. So again, y equals mx plus b. And we know that we have to replace the m and the b. So we're going to be saying y equals blank x, blank, and blank again. Okay, so y equals blank x, blank. We have these two places that we're going to fill in. Let's look at what they're giving us. Slope is 2/5. So that means that m is equal to 2 over 5. And its y-intercept is negative 3. What variable are we using for y-intercept? Right, we're using b, so this is going to be b equals -3. Once I know my m and my b, I can plug them into the appropriate positions. So m is going to go in place, or I should say 2/5 is going to go in place of m, and -3 is going to go in place of b. Let's look at example number 3. Example number 3 says to write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form. So I have that y equals mx plus b. I know that when I go to write this, it's going to be y equals blank x blank. They tell us that the line's slope is 0. Remember, we said slope is m. So I have m is equal to 0, and its y-intercept is 10. So b is going to equal 10. So since m equals 0 and b equals 10, then the equation of the line is going to be 0x, and it's a positive 10, so we're going to write plus 10. Okay. We can simplify this a little bit because we know that 0 times any number is going to be 0. So 0 times x is 0. So y equals 0 plus 10. And we can simplify this further by saying 0 plus 10 is 10. So this ends up being what it would graph like. This is actually an equation that would give us a horizontal line. Okay, and the horizontal line only goes through the y-axis. It has a slope of 0, and that's why our equation only has a y, because it only goes through the y-axis. This is only going to happen when the slope is 0. If it has any other variables, x and y, it's a diagonal line. It's going to have a positive slope or a negative slope. So I'm going to pause here, and I'm going to ask you to do the next 3 draw it slides for me. We'll see you right after you're done.